Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of On the Grid Podcast, Season 4, Episode 36. In today's episode, we'll be looking at quite a bit of news and doing a preview ahead of this weekend's Las Vegas Grand Prix. Joining me once again is my co-host Ethan Evans. Ethan, are you finally happy that we're back racing the final 3 races of the season? Are you a bit sad as well on that note?
To be honest, I'm quite done with this season. Being a Lewis Hamilton fan, I'm not enjoying the last few races. So bring on 2025 and the 8th world title campaign.
He's already got the propaganda going. Hashtag Hamilton 2025 will probably be good and ready to go on Ethan's Instagram in the near future. And also joining us on this episode is a special guest. We've not had a special guest in quite a while. That's because I've been doing a little bit of nitty-gritty work in the background and in the pipeline. Joining us, content creator, motorsport content creator, whatever you want to call her, motorsport extraordinaire, Abby Jackson. How are you?
Hi, I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me on today.
So, Abby, for people that may not know you, give us a brief background. What do you do? All that sort of stuff, all that sort of good stuff.
So I am a motorsport content creator over on TikTok and Instagram. My tag is motorsport_Abby, spelled ABI because everyone always spells it wrong. I've been around cars and bikes my entire life. I come from quite a petrol head background. My parents met through motorsport. My dad was a motorsport journalist for one of the biggest newspapers in the UK. So I've sort of followed in his journalism footsteps, but going down more of an online route because he was like actual physical newspapers. I'm more videos, content creation, social media side of things. And I try to keep my content educational, fun, sometimes little video skits, and just sort of sharing my experiences in motorsport as a woman and as a young female and just as an all-round fan, because I don't just post about Formula One. Especially this year, I've really branched into motorbikes because bikes is probably one of my bigger niches. I love motorbikes, MotoGP, BSB, World Supers, anything with 2 wheels, I'm there for it. So yeah, F1, MotoGP, British touring cars, British GT, BSB especially, those are sort of the areas that I post about. So I am an all-round motorsport content creator, and I've been doing that for it'll be 4 years next month. And it's gone pretty well for me. I've done some pretty cool stuff in my time so far.
Oh, very interesting. But in terms of Formula One,
Mm-hmm.
who you backing? Who is your favorite team driver?
So it's a bit of a tricky one because driver, I am a big Carlos Sainz fan, and I'm also a big Lewis Hamilton fan. And obviously Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari, who is the team that I support. So it's all a bit of a triangle at the moment of my favorite drivers going to my favorite team, but he's kicking out my other favorite driver from my favorite team. So it's all a bit, I don't know at the moment, but Hamilton and Sainz, my 2 favorites.
Well, it seems that it's going to be, well, from next season, that's for sure, it's going to be 3 Ferrari fans because Ethan's joining the dark side of Ferrari. I'm already a
Mm-hmm.
Ferrari fan, and you are a Ferrari fan. But
Mm-hmm.
let's begin with the news. So there's been a lot of outgoings and ingoings during this little break. So if I summarize, Paolo Bossari left the FIA compliance officer role. Race director Niels Vittich stepped down. Liberty Media CEO Greg Maffei stepped down. John Maloney took that role on an interim basis. Ethan, I've seen a lot of people, say a lot of people, probably a handful of people, label Niels Vittich leaving similar to Michael Massey. I know you're very hurt about 2021 still, and the VSC kind of incident regarding the 2 McLarens and Max Verstappen in the sprint race in Brazil not being anything like Abu Dhabi in 2021. But what have you made of some of the outgoings in the higher up roles in the FIA and in the race directory and in Liberty Media as well?
I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of controversy recently, and yeah, so there was always going to be sort of changes on the horizon. The fact this happened with 3 races to go is a little bit of a surprise. But I don't understand. You told me this before we started recording. I don't understand the comparison to 2021 because it's a monumental difference. 2021 was, for lack of a better word, ineptitude resulting in essentially the wrong decision being made. This is just I don't understand what the actual the result is of this VSC being flagged or this red flag in Brazil being given when it should have been, and a couple of the penalties being controversial. But what is the actual result of that? That Lando Norris has got a few less points, Max Verstappen maybe got a few extra points. It's the whole thing is it's a little bit blown out of proportion, but I suppose that's social media for you is that's what would tend to happen. But I don't see the comparison between 2021 myself, looking at it from a neutral perspective.
Did you say from a neutral perspective being
Neutral.
Are you sure? Are you not got your 2021 hat on still?
Taking it all out of context, all out of perspective. They're
Okay,
two
all right.
vastly different things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. But I just saw someone, some people. Well, it was kind of a social media post on one of the Facebook forums, but take Facebook with a pinch of salt and not being in any truth at all. But Abby, I'd like to come to you as well regarding the race director role. We've seen a couple of people now kind of struggle. We've seen the race directory kind of dynamics change a little bit with the FIA rules being a little bit more stricter, if you want to put it that into if you want to say that, because the penalties are a lot more severe. If you compare it to when Michael Massey was in charge, the laws are constantly changing. Do you think that there's going to be a good race director in the years to come when I think the FIA can concretely put down a set of rules before a season starts and follow them on a consistent basis?
I think whether they're going to find someone like the perfect race director, they probably won't, because no matter what decisions are ever made in a race, nobody's ever going to be happy. If it's going to be a penalty, then somebody is always going to come out, the worst. So I think it's a situation where no matter who they bring in, what rules they bring in, whether they bring in to the outside perspective an incredible set of rules, if it's going to have a knock-on effect for one of the teams in one race, people are going to get shouty about it. Team managers aren't going to be happy about it. So I think no matter who they bring in, what they do, what they change, people love to complain, and that includes F1 team principals. Like, so somebody's always going to complain about a rule or a decision that's been made. But I'm going to back up the point of social media, saying that it has just blown things out of proportion a little bit. And I think that the way people, the FIA will see how people react on social media and think, oh God, we've actually upset a lot of people here. We've now got to do something really quickly to rectify it. And they'll sort of, make a decision too quickly or jump to a different decision or, change the rules too quickly and not actually think things through because they've seen that they've upset, 30,000 Ferrari fans or whatever. So I think social media does have a big impact. But yeah, whether they find the perfect person to bring in to be in charge of everything, they probably won't. I doubt they will.
I doubt they ever will. That's right. But let's move on to a little bit of a better topic. The Monaco Grand Prix. It's been extended until 2031. Ethan, your thoughts, please. And are you a massive fan of Monaco? Let's be real. It's not a real race. Qualifying literally determines that race. I've seen not a lot of people are really happy, but then again, the Monaco Grand Prix has been on the calendar for so long that it should remain for the future.
I wonder whether you'd be saying it's good news if Charles Leclerc didn't win this season.
Let me actually respond to that one. My answer is no.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Um, if the curse was still real, then you wouldn't be saying that. But do you know what? There is so many circuits. There's 24 races now on the calendar in Formula One. I think there is place for one weekend where qualifying is more important than the race. I think there is room for that because you've got to have it's qualifying at Monaco is one of the big events of the calendar. I feel like it's that is the centerpiece. It's getting your lap in at the right time, having a little bit of luck with traffic, and then taking absolutely every risk, having the car on the edge and keeping it out of the wall. So I think there is enough room on the Formula One calendar for there to be one race where qualifying is more important, like I said. So that's my perspective on it. I'd happily keep it here for the next 20 years.
Abby, your thoughts on Monaco? Are you a fan of Monaco?
I am a fan of Monaco. I think it's one of the staples of F1. Like I say, it's been on the calendar for years. I think if it was to suddenly not be on the calendar, I think we'd come to miss it quite quickly. And it's one of those races, even one of those cities where you need to be there and experience it to actually get the full feel of it. Like I went to Monaco this year for Formula E. I know it's very different to Formula One, but just being there in that race environment in Monaco, in the same grandstands and in the same hospitality box that will be used for Formula One, you still get that feel of this is race day in Monaco, and it is an incredible feeling. And again, it is just one of those races where it's iconic. We've had some quite exciting things happen around there, like the gem from the front of the car went flying. There's been some crazy crashes where, what was it, Carlos Sainz and Perez like blocks up the entire track. Like, it can be exciting, but just not very often. Like I can see people's opinions of it being a boring race and it's only decided on the Saturday. But at the same time, if you look at the entire 75 years that F1 has been running, we have seen some pretty exciting things happen in Monaco. So I am happy for it to be on the calendar.
Well, if Charles Leclerc continues to win in Monaco, like he did this year, then hands down, I am a firm believer that Monaco should stay on the calendar. But with that being said, I do like Monaco, but I do find it a bit of a snooze fest on the Sunday. The Saturday, don't get me wrong, the Saturday is incredible, but the Sunday, just not for me. Moving on to Williams. Let's talk about Williams. We'll talk about. I was gonna touch upon a Franco Colapinto, but let's touch upon the video that Williams released. It wasn't long ago. I think it was last week where they released a video of the Brazil parts coming back and the job that they had on to get everything prepared for Las Vegas. Ethan, I know you weren't really prepared to see it, and you've not seen it. But basically, the insight that it gives us, it just shows us exactly what happens in that garage when parts do come back in bits and pieces. I think they were waiting until about 1 o'clock for everything to be finally back, 1 o'clock in the morning, that is, for everything to come back. And you can just see the absolute wreckage of Albon's and Franco's car just coming back in bits and bobs. Do you think that teams should make some of these videos for fans of the team in Formula One, on not just Williams, but maybe like a Ferrari, like a Mercedes after a big crash? Maybe they can do something like this, or would you be interested in discovering a little bit more that happens in the garages? That's the sort of question I think I was aiming to ask.
Isn't that what Drive to Survive is supposed to be? It's supposed to give you that insight about sort of behind the scenes, what actually happens in Formula One. And so seeing a little bit of a sneak peek behind the scenes is genuinely fascinating especially for someone like myself. But I think that it's good marketing from Williams, really, isn't it? Because obviously it was very high profile crashes. Obviously Albon wasn't able to run. Colapinto then crashed on the Sunday. So actually showing everybody, look at the state of this car is very good marketing, and I'm sure it got a lot of traction on social media.
Moving on to Franco Colapinto, because his future is still well up in the air. Abby, do you think there is space for Franco on the grid for 2025? Do you think that maybe a team like RB might come knocking if Lawson goes to a Red Bull, or do you think that he's likely to stay at Williams as a reserve driver for 2025 with a potential opening for 2026 somewhere?
I think it would be silly for a team not to give him a seat. Whether there is, I actually can't remember. Is there any spaces on the grid at the moment for next year?
RB have a space if Lawson it depends on Perez. If Perez exits from Red Bull, then it's likely that Lawson steps in at Red Bull, and then there's a seat at RB, which is the only seat on the grid left technically.
Mm. I think going to RB could be a bit of a risk because we've seen in the past, rookies go to RB or AlphaTauri and whatever it's been called before, and they haven't always done very well. I think because it's a very, very high pressure team. Going to a team like Red Bull or the Red Bull support team, there's still that pressure. There is so much pressure coming from above, coming from Helmut Marko. So I think it would be better for him to stay at a team like Williams or to go to a team that's not going to, every team's going to pressure a driver to do well, but not pressure him as much as a Red Bull backed car would be. But I think it would be silly for a team not to offer him a seat when he's come in halfway through the season and he's performed like this. That's something that I don't think we've seen for a long time. And I know that people are calling him like the next Ayrton Senna. I wouldn't stretch that far because he's not come in and started like winning races, but obviously he's come in, he's had top 10 finishes and all that. He's done incredibly well. So for a team to look at that and go, yeah, next year, because I'm going to compare it to a bit of Felipe Drugovich. Like, we don't see anything of him in Formula One anymore. When he was this driver that came in and he was promised all this, they said that he was going to be the next this. And then we haven't actually seen him in a long time. So I think if he was to get pushed back to 2026, somebody new from F2 would come in and then they would get the position that he's in now. So I think if he doesn't get a seat for next year, I think he will just end up on the back burner, on the back foot for the rest of his career.
Ethan, this sort of goes back to the F2 talk we kind of had a few episodes ago where we were looking at F2 champions and looking at Oscar Piastri kind of being the only real highlight that's been in Formula One after winning F2. We've seen Teo Pourchaire been absolutely nowhere, Felipe Drugovich as well. We've obviously got Gabriel Bortoleto, who's stepping up. He's the current F2 champion, so there could be a success story there. But let's be real, I don't think Sauber will have what it takes in 2025. It's likely to be 2026 where he kind of gets the push and gets the nod. What do you make of the situation that Franco Colapinto's in? Because he's obviously been there or thereabouts in Formula 2. He's not exactly been championship worthy material, but he's come into Formula One. He's took it in his stride, and he's proven a lot of doubters wrong.
What were you saying about not too much talent coming in from Formula 2? Didn't George Russell win Formula 2? Didn't Charles Leclerc win?
Yeah, but I'm saying in the last 4 years, right. I'm saying that you've had, for example, Mick Schumacher, who came into Haas, did very, very mediocre purely on the basis that the car wasn't underneath him, and then he left because the team decided to go in a different direction. You've had Teo Pourchaire win Formula 2, and he's absolutely nowhere. He was in IndyCar not so long ago, and then he got sacked by McLaren. You've had Felipe Drugovich, who's been as Aston Martin reserve driver for the last 2 seasons, and he's been given very little running apart from FP1 sessions. What I'm trying to say is F2 talent not good enough to get in Formula One? It should be it should technically be that buy to get yourself into Formula One. I mean, Franco hasn't won the championship in F2, and he's kind of curtailed his Formula 2 season due to his F1 commitments. But he's shown enough to get a seat in Formula One next season.
I think that it's about being in the right place at the right time. So you look at somebody, if you look at like an Oscar Piastri, I think he was so talented that he had the spotlight on him and said, actually, no, this guy is a level above what we usually get in F2. So although he didn't get the seat for, was it 2021? No, for 2022. Then McLaren gave him the chance in 2023 because he is that good. Those types of drivers don't come around that often. So I think when you've got someone like a Mick Schumacher or a Felipe Drugovich, it's about being in the right position at the right time. So, for George Russell, when he won F2, a seat opened up at Williams. He was with the Mercedes development program, who have obviously have a close affiliation with Williams. a seat came available at Williams, who he was put into that seat. It's about being like I said, being right place, right time with the right management, the right development program, and the seat opening up. So I think it's just a bit of bad luck for Drugovich when you've got Fernando Alonso and the owner's son. Obviously, Mick Schumacher was given 2 seasons. Unfortunately, he didn't. He proved that he wasn't up to the standard in F1. And then for Teo Porcher, again, it goes back to the point of there wasn't the opportunity. So obviously, Sauber elected to stay with Bottas and Zhou. So the seat didn't present itself. But this is what happens. It's very cutthroat. And I think it's a good thing that we're seeing a lot of rookies coming onto the grid for next season, because you look at Ollie Behrman, he's not set the world alight in F2, but when he's had those 2 races in Formula One, he's been absolutely fantastic. So, would he have got the same opportunity 10 years ago when what is he, like 9th or 10th in the F2 championship, even lower? So, it goes down to that.
Think about it. You are correct. There is a handful of rookies joining the grid next season. Let's continue on. Let's move on to your favourite segment, Ethan. The championship battle. No. Is it not on? Ethan, please tell me it's on. McLaren fans are begging you to say it's on. Please say it's on.
If Verstappen, if Lando Norris doesn't outscore Verstappen by 3 points, then he mathematically is out of it.
Okay. Let's not talk about that championship battle. Let's talk about the Constructors' Championship battle, because that is one to look out for. Still 3 teams in it: Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari. Abby, I see you're ready to tell us something amazing about Ferrari winning the championship for the first time in so long. We spoke about it, I think it was last episode or the episode before that, about who we're placing eggs in one basket for. Would it be Ferrari for you, or do you think McLaren are the team to beat still?
I think it's McLaren because both of their drivers are actually performing. Like Red Bull, they've got obviously Max, who's the only driver who's scoring big points. McLaren have got both drivers who score big points very often. Ferrari, it's like they'll either have a really good weekend or a really bad weekend. So Ferrari's just inconsistent. But the point I was going to make, this is stretching back into the Drivers' Championship, is I would argue McLaren threw away Lando's championship all the way back in Hungary, because that's, I don't know how much more I need to say about that, but I would say McLaren messed up his championship in Hungary. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
Ethan, counter argument, please. I want to see a debate. Please, counter argument.
I do disagree a little bit. I can see your reasoning, but I think that Lando Norris has thrown his own championship battle away. I think he's made too many high-profile mistakes, and that's what's cost him. Obviously, there's been sort of errors from McLaren, but you look at last weekend, the fact Verstappen starting 17th and he's winning the race, gaining 17 points on Lando Norris. That's on Lando Norris. He should have got a better start. He should have held the lead into turn 1, and then he would have dominated. Because like we said in the last episode, I think if he's ahead of not Russell, that gap is 20 seconds by the time the VSC is out, and he's able to pit and probably come out in 2nd or 3rd. So I think, there's been too many mistakes. Obviously, it's expected because it's his first championship campaign, but the fact is that actually, Max Verstappen and Lando Norris have the same amount of wins from Miami onwards. So, yeah, especially when you consider that since that point, McLaren has been by far the quicker car.
I also mentioned it, I think it was last episode, that Lando Norris kind of gives me Charles Leclerc vibes from 2022. It's his first real championship battle, and I think there's still a lot of inexperience in Lando Norris's arsenal there. And I think that if McLaren deliver the same car that they have delivered this season for Lando Norris next season, I think there will be a handful of drivers that could be in it to win it, because I think the F1 cars are reaching that point of development where they can't be developed anymore until the new reg changes in 26. So we could see a very tasty championship battle in 25. Let's move on to Las Vegas now. Talk a little bit about liveries. I know you like your liveries, Ethan. Have you seen any liveries? Especially there's been 3 liveries so far that I've seen have been announced. Steak, Alpine, pretty in. I've got actually in brackets. I've got pretty in pink for the final three races, and then VCarb as well. What have you made of those three liveries? Because Las Vegas, the glamour capital of F1. It's always going to be sparkly and dazzly with the liveries. Have you seen any of the liveries? What do you make of them? I know the Alpine one, they'll be running in pink for the final three races, so it won't be just this one. It'll be Qatar and Abu Dhabi as well. What do you make of the nice, colourful designs?
I do like the V carb one. I think it's a nice little throwback to when I think they've had that sort of livery before at some point in their history. I think it was about 2004, 2005. So it's a nice little throwback to that, but I've not actually seen the other two myself. But I imagine that the Alpine will be what they ran for the first race of the season in Bahrain, with the pink.
Abby, what are your thoughts whilst I search for these liveries so I can send Ethan so he can have a look at them and then he can have a second opinion on them?
So I saw quite a funny comparison with the Stake and the Alpine ones, and that it's an unintentional tribute to the Wicked movie that's just come out, because one of them's green and one of them's pink. So one of them will be Elphaba and the other one Glinda. I just thought I was like, yeah, that's a fair comparison. Whether they did that on purpose or not, I don't know. They probably didn't, but I just thought that was great. I think they look really good. The pink, I really like the pink this time. So I remember when was it this year when they said that the car was going to be pink, and then it was just like a little line of pink on the front. So I think the fact that they've actually gone pink this time is good. I like it. I'm liking the pink.
Ethan, have you seen the picture that I've dropped?
I have, yeah. It's very bold. I think it's very much a Vegas Grand Prix type of livery, isn't it? No, it's do you know what? It's something different. You don't really see much colour on the Formula One cars nowadays, so any bit of colour is, it can only be a good thing.
I was about to say with colour, most of the teams just have minimal paint. It's just all carbon fibre nowadays. It's just, why can't they just have some colourful designs? Maybe in 2025 they can have some colourful designs. Even would you be up for something different, something bold, like you said, with the Alpine one, something just out there for once?
I feel like the FIA needs to bring in like some sort of rule or something where they say you have to have like 60% of your car with actual paint on, because otherwise it's literally going to be all black cars because it's all carbon fiber because they want to save weight. And it just looks a bit ugly, really. So I'd like to see more colour in the cars. You go back to sort of like 2017, 2018 time where there was a lot of colour and the cars stood out from each other. You didn't think, oh, which car is that? Because there's about four it could be. So yeah, it would be nice.
Do you share the same views, Abby?
Yeah, I was going to say, if they can figure out how to make and engineer an F1 car, surely they can find a way to make carbon fiber like colourful. If they have the skills to make F1 cars, they have the skills to make carbon fiber just a bit more exciting.
Now let's move on to a bit of a different topic. We'll talk about a certain Esteban Ocon. He had a very successful weekend in Brazil, but we're not talking about his racing. We're talking about his helmet. Because why not? Let's have a bit of helmet talk after we've had livery talk. Ethan, what have you made of Mr. Captain America himself? What have you made of a tribute that Esteban Ocon is running for this weekend?
I gotta say, actually, I really like it. I think it's really cool. In his P18 coming in, but it's a very cool helmet at least.
Think about it though. Esteban Ocon started near the back of the grid last season, and he finished, I'm pretty sure, was P. Where did he finish in Las Vegas? Was it P4, P5? I'm not pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he finished somewhere high up. Regardless of that, Abby, do you think that the Captain America tribute for Esteban Ocon will lead him to glory, and he'll get back-to-back podiums?
No.
I'm being sarcastic with that. Do you think at least he will finish in the points though?
No, no. No. I think they just timed. I think they just had a good strategy. I mean, being positive. His Captain America helmet could channel all of the American freedom power and drive him to glory. But let's be realistic. No. There's not a lot to say. They just had a good race. I think the strategy team just hit the nail on the head. So yeah, I mean it's a sick helmet. Can't doubt the helmet, but yeah, just I'm not optimistic for his driving skills.
Well, that's killed my mood off completely. I
Oh,
thought we
sorry.
were going to talk about Esteban Ocon back-to-back podiums for the first time in,
26
would it be
champion.
ever or in a long time, since his probably Racing Point days or something like that. But okay, yeah, never mind. That was our funny Esteban Ocon segment about his helmet. Let's look back at last year's race. So last year's race saw obviously Max Verstappen kind of dominate that race, and we saw a very spicy last second overtake from Charles Leclerc on Sergio Perez to gain second place ahead of the Mexican in third. Ethan, roles have reversed now. Ferrari are better than Red Bull, but McLaren are better than Ferrari. Do we see Leclerc being in a McLaren sandwich, or do we see Leclerc being on top and the two McLarens behind him? Predict it whichever way you want to, because I know you want to say Lando Norris or Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc, one of the three drivers.
I've got a sneaking feeling that Ferrari could be quite good here. I don't know what it is. I think it's sort of the cold weather. They were very strong there last year. I've got a sneaking feeling that they could be the pace setters. So if I was you, I'd be quietly optimistic.
Hey, you've just put a smile on my face. Abby, do you share the same views as Ethan? Ferrari being very good in high speeds. We obviously saw what happened in Monza, very quick, very nimble car. Do you think that a setup similar to Monza, where straight line speed is utilized, especially down that long straight down the Las Vegas Strip, could be utilized to the best of the abilities, and could see Ferrari get the win in Las Vegas?
I hope so. I really do hope so. I think it goes back to a little bit to what I said earlier, is that when things go well for Ferrari, they go really well, and when things don't go well, they really don't go well. But I think it's not too dissimilar of a track to Monza, with a few corners, but predominantly long straights. So if they get the setup right, they could do really well. So hopefully they do get the setup right, and the strategy team, pull their head out and get something sorted for the weekend. I think it has the potential to be a really good weekend for Ferrari. But saying that, I'm looking at my predictions list that I've got written down, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about Ferrari.
Um, you did it. You've given us a perfect segue there to our predictions. Ethan, kickstart us off with your two-star predictions for the first race of a triple header in Las Vegas.
So I've gone for a red flag in qualifying, very tight circuit here in Vegas. So I think there'll be a crash in qualifying, leading to a red flag. And then I've gone for Haas to get points on home territory. Nico Hulkenberg's been strong all season. I think that Haas is in a good position right now. Yeah, I'd be optimistic for Haas to get a couple of points.
Abby, yourself, what have you gone for your two-star predictions?
For my first one, I've gone for Lawson, a top 10 finish. I reckon we could see him as high as P7. And then I've also said one of the teams will have a double DNF. So both cars DNF. But I don't know which one, but I reckon just a team will have a double DNF.
And for my two-star predictions, I've gone for a safety car. I think similar to Ethan, I think the nature of a track, I think we will likely see someone crash out in it, and the safety car will be released. And my second star predictions is sorry, Ethan, but it goes to your team, Mercedes DNF. So one of the cars, either Russell or Hamilton, will likely DNF. I'm sorry, I had to chuck something in there to dampen your mood. I didn't mean to. It's generally no hard feelings, but I do see Mercedes being struggling a little bit more than the other four front running teams. But let's move on to our qualifying and race predictions. So for qualifying, I've actually gone for Lando Norris to get pole position, with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz in second and third. I've gone with Max Verstappen in fourth and Oscar Piastri in fifth. Ethan, who have you got on pole position?
On pole position, I've got Charles Leclerc. I've got Lando Norris second and Carlos Sainz third. Verstappen fourth and Piastri fifth.
Abby, you have similar views? Have we got similar top fives?
I've gone Piastri on pole position, followed by Max Verstappen, and then second row Hamilton P3, Norris P4, and then Leclerc in P5 is what I'm going for.
Very interesting. I wasn't. I don't know about Hamilton. Will he hit the nail on the head in Las Vegas?
Yes.
Even I've got two different perspectives because there's two Hamilton fans on this podcast. Ethan's shaking his head. Abby's in. They're contradicting each other. Ethan, come in on this. What are your thoughts and feelings with Lewis Hamilton at Vegas?
I'd really love to be optimistic, but I have no optimism. I'd really love to sit here and say, actually, no, do you know what? I think I'll be on the front row and I'll get a podium. But I just that car is a wheelie bin, so I really don't have any faith that he can get anything out of it. I'd love it to happen though. I would love it.
Oh, nice little tribute to Kevin Keegan. Ethan, why don't you give us your race predictions in that case?
So for the race, I've gone Charles Leclerc first, Carlos Sainz second, and then the McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and then Verstappen in fifth.
And Abby, finally, your thoughts ahead of the race?
I've gone first two to say the same, so Piastri is going to win, followed by Verstappen. Third step of the podium, Norris, and then Leclerc and Hamilton 4 and 5 is what I'm going with.
So for me, I've gone similar to Ethan. I've gone Charles Leclerc to win the race. I always have these sneaky suspicions because my Ferrari hat is just giving me too much, too much to handle. But I do see a strong comeback for Leclerc in Vegas, and I think after a strong showing last season, I think he'll go one better this season. I've got Lando Norris and Max Verstappen to round off the top three, and then Carlos Sainz in fourth and Oscar Piastri in fifth. That about does it for episode 36 of On the Grid Podcast. Thank you, Ethan, for joining me. Thank you, Abby, for joining us as well. Abby, just before we end the episode, where can the lovely people that listen to this podcast where can they find you?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me on. You can find me on TikTok as motorsport_Abby, spelled ABI, or on Instagram, which is abby.jacko. And yeah, so if you want to see my experiences with motorsport, being behind the scenes, and just all-round car and bike content, those are the two platforms you can find me on.
Thank you for coming on. We'll be back next week as we review the Las Vegas Grand Prix and we preview the Qatar sprint race. The final sprint race, whoopee-doo. I'm not a fan of sprint races, as you can tell. But like I said, we'll be back next week, hopefully with another special guest. But in the meantime, continue to check out our content on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, all that good stuff. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.